CM Punk has joined AEW. What does it mean? Is it going to be the next coming of the New World Order? Are we going to have a huge, resurgence of wrestling into the mainstream, or is it going to be like a wet fart in church?
Is that did CM Retro decide to be a wrestler?
No. CM Punk, or Chick Magnet Punk, is a Chicago-based
Oh,
wrestler.
criminy sake.
Criminy sake what, Carl?
I mean, does his wiener shoot bullets like a Tommy gun or what?
No. Chick Magnet was his original name when he was a backyard wrestler. He was in a group called the Chick Magnets, and it was Chick Magnet Punk and Chick Magnet something else. Eventually, he grew up. He kept the CM as a tribute to his roots. He became CM Punk, one of the greatest, if not the greatest, current wrestler in the world. He's really good. It's really good. I like him. I enjoy him. But I don't think he has the appeal, the mainstream popularity, or the reach of someone like a Hulk Hogan, a Rock, John Cena. And I know wrestling fans, they're really excited. They're, oh my God, CM Punk is in AEW. They've arrived. They've made it. This is going to signal the restart of the Monday Night Wars and all this great wrestling shit. And I'm going to tell you, I don't see it, Carl. I don't see it. I mean, you barely know who this guy
I do
is.
have an opinion about wrestling, so I do have. See, the thing is, wrestling is theater. It's not a sport, no matter what anyone out there says. It's theater. It's basically a story between good and evil. It's like a comic book, which is why it appeals to men.
JM De Los Santos says, I don't think Carl knows anything about wrestling. CM Punk is buddies with Colt Cabana, and an AEW producer and wrestler. They had a falling out. I don't think he means it in a rude way. I think he just meant that you not interested. I don't think he knows that you used to watch wrestling.
Oh, I used to watch wrestling, and every time it was about good versus evil. Like on the WWE, the Un-Americans versus everyone else. They were the bad guys, and everyone else who were against them were the good guys. And what happened, as always with good versus evil, the Un-Americans used to falter. The same with Brock Lesnar. It's just, there's nothing wrong with that. That's just how it is. And there are athletics involved. It's athletic theater, since there are some athletics involved, but it's not a sport.
No, it's not a sport. But this whole CM Punk, he came out, he gave a little speech, how he, when he left Ring of Honor, that was when he had left the whole wrestling scene. He's trying to make it sound like his time in the WWE was, basically a non-issue. It wasn't real wrestling. It was sports entertainment. He wasn't a wrestler anymore. But now he's back. He's back in AEW. He's back in wrestling. And it felt weak. Didn't have the oomph of a CM Punk pipe bomb that we're used to. And this was in Chicago. This was here in Chicago. His hometown. I was looking for something a lot more impactful, something a lot more personal. It was weak. The whole AEW, was it Rampage, the Friday night show that just debuted a week ago.
Yeah,
it was weak, Carl. I mean, I'm not familiar. This was the first ever AEW anything that I've watched. I'm familiar with some of the announcers, some of the wrestlers, some of the older guys. The newer people, no familiarity with them. And I wasn't impressed. The opening match was a tag team match between two teams that I've never heard of before. They didn't impress me. The ending, the finish, that was impressive. The bigger guy, Luchasaurus, he basically threw a guy in the air, and the other guy grabbed him and spun over and did a power bomb. It was an impressive move. That was the biggest thing on the show, but really, really, this is not going to be a Monday Night War. This is not going to be a resurgence of wrestling into the mainstream. It's not going to be like when WCW and WWF were competing. De Los Santos asked earlier about Vince McMahon saying AEW is not competition, and I agree. They're not. They're not competition.
Of course, they're not competition. Vince McMahon is a genius when it comes to, getting the fans interested in wrestling. He just is. It's hard to do. Yeah, I was going to get to that comment. Honestly, I can't answer that since I don't have enough knowledge. Well, I don't watch much WrestleMania now, and I didn't before in my life, so I can't answer that question. I'm not saying you're right or wrong. I just can't answer that question. Maybe if I cared enough to watch all of it, but I don't. I have better things to do in my life.
What is better than watching two sweaty men in really tight pants?
Sounds like porn to me. Sounds like gay porn.
I wouldn't know. I don't watch gay porn, Carl.
I mean, think about it. It's just because I have a really good imagination. That's why.
But I've never imagined gay porn.
Just that's kind of thing. It's like kind of the same as football. Why I can't watch football?
I can't watch sports, period.
I love baseball, but that's, but I did a bit of, I'm like most, I have this theory that most men either want to be an athlete, were an athlete at some point, or want to be in sports, were in sports. Third one, but that's basically it. I fall into that. I fall into that equation. I fall in that equation, so it's why base.
Hold on, Ninja Kitty says I may know someone who has worked with CM Punk and some of the AEW crew. Trust me, it won't be mainstream Monday Night War. Yeah, exactly. It's not going to be. A lot of wrestling fans are building this up as some really huge, monumental moment, and it's not. I mean, it's a huge moment for AEW. I love CM Punk. He's a great wrestler. It does show that they're trying to get the best of the best on the show, but
it's kind of like the Intellivision Amico.
How so, Carl?
You get the same kind of people, the wrestlers. They kind of remind me of all those hardcore Amico fans who like the System and Tommy Tallarico. This is, in my opinion, at least, it's the same kind of group.
Yeah.
Now I know people are different me on that, so that's just my thought, folks.
Well, my thought is CM Punk's going to be good in AEW. It's going to have a lot of good wrestling matches. Some interesting storylines will probably come out of it, but it will not be this big, huge mainstream moment. No one's going to really care outside of the wrestling fanatics, the AEW fans. It's not going to steal any thunder from WWF, who I haven't watched them in a while, but the last time I seen it, the WWF or WWE is a pretty shitty product. I'm not going to lie.
Okay, to answer Have an Amico Days question, I think Darius is usually too stoned to appreciate something like wrestling.
He was. I think he did have an AEW watch along or something the other day. I don't really follow his channel. I think I noticed that.
Every time I see him do a video, he's smoking a joint.
Nothing wrong with that.
I mean, yeah, but I mean, if you can't do a video without being that stoned, I mean, evaluate your.
Ninja Kitty says he wants to hop in and discuss some wrestling.
Come on in.
But yeah, like I said, he's a hometown guy. I like him. Love CM Punk. Love his matches. Love his his mic work.
You know,
Been out of the business for a while.
I've never been in a position to tell anyone they shouldn't like something. If you want to like something, like it. By all means, go for it. It's because, like I said, that's a flavor's the spice of life, as they say.
JM says you shouldn't be discussing something you don't know, like wrestling. On video games, you have good takes.
I could, but I'm going to. I shouldn't, but you know what? I'm going to. Waka waka.
What's up, Ninja Kitty?
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Good stuff. Yeah, I was gonna throw in my wrestling 2 cents there, since Carl hates on the wrestling so much.
I'm not hating. I just have more of a practical point of view. It's just I just have more of a more of a realistic point of view. But I totally get why people like wrestling.
Because they like watching 2 oiled up dudes rubbing each other. Rubbing up against each
other. It's a kind of you take it apart. It's a good, decent storytelling. It
was popular in the 80s, I'll say, when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Because I believed. Because I was like 7 years old. I'm like, okay, this guy is legit.
It's like
Undertaker legit was like
a zombie, or that Sergeant Slaughter was legitimately in the army.
In the 90s.
It was real?
In the 90s, it was just entertaining. Like, no
one
really
it's just entertainment.
Because it was more adult oriented. Well, it was definitely adult oriented and whatnot. So in the late 90s, early 2000s, when the Rock was really popular, and it's totally different from what it is the last, 15 years or so.
Yeah.
So that's why the decline, because, well, at this point, I assume it's mostly just old guys and really young kids watching wrestling. So.
Oh, we got a question here for Ninja Kitty. It says, who do you know, a producer in AEW? Don't you think that since WWE ratings are going down and AEW goes up, AEW will eventually surpass WWE in maybe 5 years or so?
Well, I'll go back to what I said there. Because I don't want to dox myself, because it'd be kind of obvious. I know CM Punk left the WWF, or WWE, sorry, and then he tried joining he went into UFC.
Yep.
So I may know somebody who may have trained him and trained with him. So I did get to hear some of the inside stories of, so like when he did start, there's a lot of, they try to keep it hidden, being the UFC, of how his progress was going, training. But it's somewhat leaked out that he really sucked, in a nice way of putting it. And physically he's just like an average man. Like, he is athletic, but it wasn't like, he was physically someone like Kurt Angle at the time was a gold medal, Olympic athlete. Like, he was a legit athlete. CM Punk was just like a backyard wrestler.
Yeah.
So it was well known that he was going to get his ass kicked. They just wanted to kind of hide it until he was on the show.
I mean, he's probably not like Sergeant Slaughter, or not Hulk Hogan, who legitimately taught us out. His voice sounds like he's tough.
Yeah, he also wasn't like 6'6" and like 280 pounds of steroids.
That's true.
He's like a 160, 70-pound dude or whatever.
To be fair, when they found Hulk Hogan, he was just playing in a band. He was just playing guitar in some local band.
This is true, but he also was a big dude, though.
Yeah, but I'm sure he didn't have like that big of muscles. I don't think he was doing steroids to be a fucking band member.
Not at that time, though. There's pictures of him playing the guitar and stuff. He's still big. He's still 6'6" and like 230 pounds type of thing, though. Either way, CM Punk guy, he apparently he was a decent dude, but people liked him because at the time when he was popular, so 7 years ago, he at least had a bit of edge on him, like attitude or edge, because everybody is so watered down nowadays that it's so bland and boring to watch unless you are like a 6-year-old kid. So that's why people liked him. But athletically, he's never going to be like a mainstream star. Someone like The Rock, you look at him, he's just like the perfect specimen type of thing. Same with like Austin. Like, they look like big, tough, strong guys. So 7 years later now, CM Punk is back and he looks old. And I watched a little bit of his comeback, but he's kind of, like you said, he's kind of bland. Yeah, he's just like an average dude. maybe
Like your
slightly
uncle,
smaller than
just-
average. Because he was 100, I think 70 or 80 pounds. So that's not a big guy considering The Rock is like 280 pounds or 60 pounds or whatever he is of muscle.
J.M. De Los Santos wants to know. He said, "Did CM Punk and Colt Cabana ever become friends again? They had a falling out when WWE sued them for the podcast Colt did. Any inside scoop? Are they friends?"
Well, I have no idea, but I assume at this point, the next point I was going to make is I know some people who know some people. Like to keep it nice and vague there, who wrestle in AEW. I told you before I had like a lot of other wrestling stories, a lot of funny ones with older wrestlers and stuff. But
I mean, Ninja Kitty does sound like a wrestler.
No, actually, I do have a wrestling story, but oh Jesus, I don't want to derail it completely. I was in the ring. I saved a wrestler in the ring one day. I'll tell that one in a bit. But
Yeah.
to answer that second question there, I'm pretty sure the money makes everyone friends, and they have what the term is called, a money mark. The guy who runs AEW, or owns it, Tony Khan. It's completely obvious he's a mark too. You don't even need to like really watch the product to see the guy and how he acts and whatnot. So his dad is a billionaire. So with all that money going around, everyone will be friends and be best friends with each other. And they are taking it's usually what happens, and it happens on the local scene on a much smaller level. There'll be a money mark and it happened around where I live too. Somebody has a little bit of money, and everyone tries to start a new little promotion, the next Ring of Honor and stuff, and they just pretty much bleed the money mark dry because they're like, oh, we'll invite this guy over, and it's so hard to make money with wrestling, especially on the independent level. You don't even make money. Like I don't think anyone makes money on the independent level. Like it's very difficult. So now that they have a billionaire money mark, everyone's joining in. There's I'm sure Colt Cabana doesn't care that he's getting, a 6-figure salary if he has to apologize to CM Punk.
My dad used to work at Hertz rent a car, and he told me that they may sound like they're enemies on screen, but they're actually usually friends in real life or something like that.
Yeah, but Colt Cabana and CM Punk had a real life falling out.
But yeah, I mean, as
money
always,
talks. If you're giving him millions of dollars, CM Punk millions of dollars, and Colt Cabana hundreds of thousands of dollars,
they're going to do the
they'll be happy.
thing. Yeah.
And it's such a light schedule and so easy. It's like a dream job.
Yeah, Ninja Kitty says CM Punk's appeal is he's a good talker and storyteller. He also wrestles well, not physically imposing though. Yeah, I mean he's not physically imposing, but at the very least, when he was in WWE, Ring of Honor, when he was younger, he had, like he said, like Ninja Kitty said, he had that edge. He had the. He was more hip to what was going on. He just seems like an old dude. Like your uncle just wandered off into the fucking ring.
I've tried watching AEW a bit, and they have an opportunity, and they do have like some good talent, but I'm not sure. Like you said, you watched one of the matches. I didn't watch the whole episode, but for example, they had the Luchasaurus, which is kind of dumb because the guy has like the dinosaur thing, but whatever. But his partner Marco Stunt, like have you ever seen that guy? Like if you haven't, Google image that guy. It's like a 5'2", 105-pound, like weird looking person, and then they have like a guy like him fighting against a 280-pound muscle guy and like make it seem like he can beat him up. It kind of we all know it's fake, but like it's so far-fetched that it's hard to watch. It's not even funny.
It's so fake that people don't really care,
Maybe I'm just old, but the comedy they use is just in AEW is it's just bad. Like it's just not funny at all. So like I used to like in the old days, like with The Rock and whatnot. Like The Rock is super funny. Like you just watch his stuff on YouTube, like his promos. They're still funny like 20 years later. And nowadays it's just you see like Chris Jericho, who's like 55 and bloated, trying to be funny, and it's just like no laughs at all. Like it's just I don't know. They'll probably beat WWE in ratings because WWE is so bad itself, but the overall ratings are just going to keep going down between the both of them. It's like it's not going to be as mainstream like it was in the 80s or the late 90s. Like I don't
That's
know anyone
true.
who watches wrestling. Like even in the late 90s, they had a lot of local shows, a lot of local wrestling when it was popular, and you'd see like 1,000 people go to the show and stuff. And now, like they have local wrestling shows. There's like 30 people, and then it's like the same 30 people go to show to show. It's like very
Pretty much.
very minimal. And no one really cares about it at all.
Yeah, I don't think that AEW is ever going to beat the WWE in ratings because if they really get to that level, like it starts getting really close, Vince McMahon will just throw some money at a fucking Cena or a Rock or somebody and bring them back, and ratings will go up. It'll get a little bump for a couple of weeks, and AEW will be fucking blood dry. AEW is the Amico of fucking wrestling. Let's just put
But
it to that
with
way.
an investor, though.
Yeah.
With an actual real investor.
I mean,
Amico has David Perry. David
That's-
Perry's their Tony Khan.
it's so weird because
Smash JT, who's
I
their
do know
Tony
a
Khan.
David Perry, but I definitely doubt they use the same guy.
No, I don't think it's your David Perry. So why don't you tell us this famous wrestling story? You saved somebody in the ring.
Oh,
We work in
Great
security. Were you wrestling?
no, I thought. So one of the knocks on AEW, and one of the YouTube channels I watch, it's controversial. It's Jim Cornette and his rants and ravings about the AEW, and I don't agree 100% with him, but I do agree with a lot of it. And one of his complaints is a lot of the guys in the ring now look, they're not physically imposing, just like what I said with that Marco Stunt guy. And it's just like back in the 80s, everyone was roided up, gigantic, and 6'3", 6'2". Nowadays, you just get like fat, bland white dudes and stuff in the ring. So that happens a lot on the local circuit. And one time I was in a country show, like in the country where there's a lot of hicks, and Honky Tonk Man was there. That was the big attraction. That guy was
You were in
hilarious, too.
Arkansas?
It'd be the equivalent almost.
Wow.
And the local wrestling, they had a lot of like unathletic wrestlers, and they're on the show, and the guy was mouthing off to the crowd, and they were a bunch of drunk rednecks, and this lady had enough of this guy, so she got in the ring and grabbed him in a hold, and he couldn't break out. And like this is like a I don't know, a lady who's like in her mid 40s, drunk, probably like 180, 200 pounds. And he couldn't get out, and like everyone was laughing, which makes it kind of sad. Like if you're a fan of wrestling, that everyone's laughing at it. And I had to go in the ring and get her off of him. I didn't have to, I just did it because I felt bad for the guy. And everyone was laughing and making fun of him, and I went in the ring and I had to save this man from this lady who was in her 40s, who was on top of him at that time. It would be the equivalent of if you're into like mixed martial arts, like full mount, like she's on top of him, had his hands pinned down, and I don't remember what she was saying, and I had to go in the ring and like pull her off because he couldn't get her off. I'm like, this is kind of killing the image of
breaking kayfabe.
Breaking kayfabe, and it was just hilarious, and that happened a few times, and it was amusing, but if you were a fan, it's so sad.
All right, as you can see on the screen, we got the guy on the far right is Luchasaurus.
Yeah, that guy looks
tough. On the far left is the Marco Stunt that Ninja Kitty was referring to. He looks like a little boy.
He's not a boy. He's a full adult.
He's a full adult.
And they have him fighting against guys who are as big as the guy on the right, and like making it seem like he can flip the guy on the right. And it's just not realistic at all.
No, it's not. Like I said, AEW has a lot of good athletes. They do some athletic moves, but the show is bland. It's I don't even know how it could be so bland. You got Jim Ross, Taz on the mic. I think who else? Excalibur is on the mic with them. I think they got like 4 or 5 fucking.
Got Tony Schiavone.
Yeah, Tony. They got like 4
Sometimes
announcers.
they have Mark Henry.
And Mark Henry does backstage interviews and stuff. And I don't know. It's like everyone's just phoning it in. Like I'm just collecting.
You're just taking the money from the mark.
Yeah. Like this is the biggest, like the amount of talent, and this is why I compared it to the Amico, because the amount of talent that they got there as far as like the announcers, the staff, the managers, and some of the older wrestlers. They should
The
be in
crew.
a position where they could eventually surpass the WWE. But it's not going to happen. It's like I said, everyone's just phoning it in. They're just bleeding the money mark dry. Probably like 2 or 3 years, it's going to fade away and no one's even going to remember. It's going to be like, what was AEW? Do you remember that? Sad. Anything you want to add to this, Carl?
No. I mean, it sounds like a name of a root beer or something. But
That's ANW.
no, I don't really have an opinion. I said I said my piece already about it.